All right, guys, welcome to today's presentation. And my name is Pharmacist Joseph Ebirim, the team lead at PGN Biz Consult. So, very quickly, I'll be talking about building a reliable, profitable team. And so, the interest of this presentation is to help give pharmacy owners an insight to what they should be prioritizing on when trying to hire their staff. All right. So, why is it important to hire and hire right? So it's easy to hire. I mean, so long as you see people dropping application, they want a job, they want the pay, so you can literally offer them a deal and they will be glad to accept it. But then when they get into the game, into the pitch, and then we now know whether they are really players or they are jokers, right? So why it's important to hire right is because as long as your shop is open, as long as your premises is open, people can walk in and they will definitely meet your staff. Now, the quality of service given to the people who work in, the customers, will determine a lot of things, whether they will come back, the impression they have, how much they will buy, and so on and so forth. So customers will actually assess and have an impression about your pharmacy consequent on the kind of people they meet. Whether you're the owner or not the owner, as long as you work in that pharmacy and you render service, so that's going to form, that's going to be the determinant of the impression that the customers have. And of course, what they do, how much service, the quality of service they render tells a lot and can actually cost a lot. So if they offer beautiful services, to the extent they do that, you are safe from litigation issues, you're safe from losses. But of course, if you hire the wrong people, then you can get a lot of issues. So you can land yourself into trouble because maybe if they give the wrong medications to a particular person and harm is caused, and then social media or litigations or whatever impression that is created to the public because of that error, it can be very damaging. So it could lead to financial loss, it could lead to regulatory issues, it could be shut down and all that. All right. So when you have very wonderful staff, people will love to come there because they believe they get value and they feel respected and their needs are met. Right. So if you have, apart from the customer service aspect of it, how your staff attend to patients, but if you have competent staff, from hiring right, then you'll be able to notice that you have staff who will be proactive enough to say, oh, we are running out of this product, let's have it because the patients come in, they need this product. Okay. Or you have patients who actually pay attention when you're training them, so that when a certain client comes and wants a certain drug and they don't have exactly that, with the knowledge they've gained from trainings that you have paid for, they will be able to make useful substitutions. All right. Or when patients come in, they can do meaningful upselling and cross-selling that also increases the value of every visit. So that's what you can get when you hire right. So it's important, and that is why hiring right matters. All right. So you can imagine a scenario where you urgently hire a staff without proper interview, without doing, dotting your I's and crossing your T's. And then within weeks, you notice that your stock is getting missing. They're not balancing enough. Your staff is already causing trouble for your headaches, and then maybe your customers are beginning to complain and you hear certain remarks. Then you already know that that's because you rushed and then you got the wrong team. Okay. So when you're trying to hire, then you also look at what are the ideal characteristics that make up a good staff, right? So what are the qualities of an ideal retail pharmacy staff? So be someone that is, of course, disciplined enough to show up at work early, whose workspace is tidied, who is dutiful, who is not always complaining, someone who is very polite, someone who is articulate, communicates very well, someone who is sincere in their dealings with people and who prioritizes, integrity, not someone who is pretentious. Okay. So you want to see people who bring in initiative, who are, compliant, who bring up ideas, who are courageous, who are not just swayed, people who can, be confident enough to talk to people and, give value, people who can replicate your personality, what you stand for, what your company stands for in the course of their work. All right, so there are some ideal qualities of a leader. So in managing your staff and even in recruitment, so you want to state clearly what roles you want to rehire for, right? You need to state what are the job descriptions, what are the responsibilities that you want to, feel. You're not just hiring human beings to just come and show up and sit down. You're hiring people who come and do certain things so that when everybody plays their part, right, all the duties that are necessary for the achievement of set goals would have been carried out. So you want to be clear on what you want to hire. You're not just hiring because you want to employ a person that you like. You want to know that all the people you're hiring are going to bring in certain expertise that addresses certain roles that need to be filled. So that's it. So you also want to look at, your inventory, your records. You want to make sure that people, man these very critical aspects of retail pharmacy, right? Because it's a business it's a practice that fuses clinical practice with business because of the presence of commodities that are purchased and sold out. So it's important that you pay attention to inventory, when you're recruiting people who have, that ability to take stock of what is being placed in their care, and people who always have the ability to keep records, efficient records, and of course transmit them when necessary. So look at staff who can properly counsel patients, who can really have very beautiful conversations that add value to your patients. So you look at that when you're recruiting. All right. So knowledge and expertise is not everything. Attitude is key, very, very key. So you can have someone who is very knowledgeable and is rude to your customers. That doesn't, give you any value at all. All right. You have someone who is knowledgeable but is not organized. Everywhere is dirty, comes to work late. That's poor habits. So you look at the father, and the fun thing is that whatever knowledge is something you can teach, you can enforce knowledge, but attitude is something that will require the person to, accept to behave in a certain way. All right, and to a great extent, it's formed by the person's background, upbringing, environment. So it's easier to hire a good attitude and train on the skill than to than to neglect attitude and focus on just skill. So when you see people who are very intelligent but are crafty or have character deficits, then you see that first of all, you're going to lose on sales. You're going to lose on customers because customers are keen about quality, care, and concern and respect. Right. So, and then another thing again is that you stand the risk of the person even leaving you anytime or even stealing from you and making the most out of your business and for their own selfish gain. So attitude is key and customer delight is priority. So whenever you're hiring, you want to look at all those things. All right. So you look at what are the kind of questions that you can ask when you're interviewing a patient, a prospective staff. Right. So you want to find out from them how can they handle impatient customers. Erratic customers, let me not say erratic, but difficult customers. So you want to test them for that. All right. You also want to test them for the ability to report and to be safety conscious because you're handling lives, right? So you can say, what do you do if you did notice a dispensing error? You want to see how they relate to people. You want to see their collaborative skills. You want to see if they're able to even pick out errors. You want to see how they would take leadership and ownership of their workspace. All right, so you want to find out things like that. You want to find out things about themselves, right? So tell us who you are. How are they able to communicate? How are they able to, describe who they are? Are they confident in who they are? Are they intentional people, or are they just, being good, by virtue of circumstance, all right? So you also want to do calculation tests because pharmacy work has to do with dosages. So you want to test them for their mathematical skills and the ability to calculate, simple doses. Right. You also want to play some kind of, customer roles so that you see how, typical scenarios that you see how your prospective staff will respond. And when you're paying attention to them talking, you should be able to know someone who is being, real and someone who is just being, talking in a stereotype manner. All right. You can also employ them briefly for probation or place them on observation and see what they're able to do and test them, So when you're onboarding and, placing the person on a period of probation, you want to get them acquainted with the SOPs. We want to let them know clearly what you're expecting of them, and also place them on create a system where they can provide you with feedbacks on what they think about the assignments they've been given, about the work they are doing. All right, so you want to give them the SOP orientation, give them clear expectations, and expect feedback from them. That should be very clear. All right. So by and large, we're saying that you should hire for attitude. Great entrepreneurs, business owners want to hire for attitude. Train for skill. All right. So when you hire for attitude, go for the best attitude. And then, of course, to everyone listening, when you know that attitude is key, then you have to put up the best attitude at work. And then when you have deficits in competence, knowledge, you can ask to be taught. All right. So be the best in your attitude, and that's for the staff. And then learn as much skills. But generally, to conclude, as business owners, we must aim to hire for attitude. All right. Train for skill, and then by so doing, you protect your pharmacy brand. All right. Thank you, and I hope that was a good one.